the riskiest thing that you've ever done?
Hi, I'm Nandini, a scientist at the Institute of High Performance Computing. I'm an experimental social psychologist and my background is in mental health and risky behavior.
Thanks for joining us today, Nandini. So could you please just tell us more about, what you do?
One of the biggest projects that I have on right now is something called Psychologist, and what we're doing is working together to see how Singapore would look like in 2040 when we've got electric vehicles, buses, motorcycles and LGVs. My role specifically is to look at how people's charging behaviour influences fluctuations in the power grid.
Tell us, why did you even start to consider risk-taking behaviour, an area in which you want to specialise?
I read a journal article that was published back in 1998, and it compared risk-taking behaviour amongst Chinese students who'd gone to America to study and American students who were already studying in America. So they asked both groups of people, look at these list of investments, rate them, how risky do you think they are, and how likely are you to invest in them? Can you try and guess what the results were? Who was more risky, the Americans or the Chinese?
The Chinese?
Okay, you're one of the only people who's actually got that correct.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, the authors expected the Americans to be more risky because back in 1998, Americans were seen as, entrepreneurial spirit, frontier spirit. And what they actually found was that the Chinese were consistently rating the investments as less risky and themselves as more likely to engage in them. And then in 2015, when I was thinking about what to do for my PhD, I read another paper that found that people with more friends on Facebook take more financial risks. I was like, okay, that's interesting because Facebook friends doesn't really have anything to do with culture, right? My PhD was looking at how social support actually affected risk-taking behavior across different domains of risk. The risk-taking literature sort of has changed over the years to go from somebody's risk-seeking as a whole to just because somebody is an impulsive gambler doesn't necessarily mean they'll go bungee jumping, because that's a very different type of risk. People's risk in different domains changes. So I was looking at how social support affects risk across all different domains.
So now let's talk about how this applies to your work at A-Star. Right?
Yep.
So you talked about electrification of vehicles earlier.
When it comes to charging behaviors, I'll use handphones as an example because I think that's something that everybody will have and everybody can relate to. When you see your handphone battery drop to 50%, the first thing that people want to do is run for a charger, right? The same thing is true for cars for most people in Singapore especially, because they don't realize just yet that with 50% battery, you can actually drive a considerable distance. That sense of anxiety is what we call range anxiety. It's where people get anxious about how long they have left before they reach their next destination and with a battery.
Right?
When it comes to risky behavior, my angle towards it is on decision-making aspect of it. So when and how people decide to engage in risky behavior. So when I joined A-Star and this Psychologist project came up, I spoke to the behavioral team head for Psychologist. And so we were talking about how even deciding to charge and choosing to deal with the anxiety of, maybe I won't be able to find a charger anytime soon is also a type of risky behavior.
So to end this interview on a more fun note, I'm just going to ask you, what's the riskiest thing that you've ever done? Oh, okay, that's really risky behavior. Did you at least have a life jacket on?